Now that I got Cyrene's story out of my system, it's time to actually talk about the extra lore bits that were dropped in patch 3.7 story and my overall thoughts. There's a lot of stuff to go through, and we will take a look at these and try to speculate what this means for the future of HSR. This time, I won't go as far as I did in the Forgotten Crew Member video I made. Even I know that one was pretty much fueled by my desire to give Cyrene a good ending, and don't worry, my voice won't crack going through this video, I hope. First off, let me just say how insane the lore drops were, especially when I take into account the theories I came up with in my 3.6 video. It's funny for me to realize that my predictions were actually wrong, but at the same time, 100% on the mark. What do I mean by that? Well, take a look at these 3 predictions I made about Cyrene. The scepter appears to be gaining sentience, but how does it know the Trailblazer's name before they even set foot on Amphoreus? My assumption is that Cyrene's influence runs deeper than we realize. Perhaps she imprinted a part of herself onto the scepter, guiding it toward awareness. It's possible that this consciousness could one day become, or at least contribute to, the complete version of Elysia. Another possibility is that the scepter's awakening serves a different purpose entirely, to become the 13th Titan, giving Amphoreus another chance to stand against Iron Tomb. Or maybe, just maybe, the scepter isn't evolving on its own at all. Perhaps it's channeling the will of Fully, the Aeon of Remembrance. Maybe that's who Cyrene has been talking to all this time. Fully might also be the same mysterious he that the very first Cyrene once spoke to, the one who supposedly was able to see Amphoreus from outside. I was wrong about these 3 predictions. It's not that one of these theories is true, it's that all of these theories are true. I can't believe I actually managed to predict everything without realizing it. Yes, the scepter was developing a consciousness. That consciousness was Cyrene. Yes, Cyrene's influence on the scepter was stronger than we knew, because as we found out in 3.7, Cyrene is the scepter's heart, while Phynon is the scepter's body. And yes, the scepter is channeling the will of Fully, the remembrance, because Cyrene herself becomes Fully. My mind was seriously blown away when realizing this. I was expecting to get one of these right, but all 3 of them at the same time? This gave me such a confusing feeling of validation and satisfaction that thematically fit with 3.7's revelations. Moving on, let's talk about the Garden of Recollection. The reason why they are involved here isn't because they just wanted memories, it's because they know that Fully hasn't been born yet and want to trigger their birth. And for the Garden, they knew that Cyrene was the closest that they could get to triggering their birth. How? Probably because of the chaotic matter around Amphoreus, which Herta revealed is actually Cyrene's memory. Chances are the Garden didn't realize it was Cyrene as an individual. But the presence of a memory that is this vast and that can encompass an entire world, that was too much of a sign to ignore. Think of it like a moth being drawn to a powerful, roaring flame. This further makes us understand why the Garden is also after March, because if any pure child of Anasrava can ascend to become the Aeon of Remembrance, then March 7th is also a candidate. I would even argue she is the prime candidate, and it's all thanks to Evernight. Why? Remember how I said that March is a fragment of Fully and Evernight is a fragment of Mythos? If Fully isn't born yet, that means Mythos isn't born yet either. So who has the highest chance of becoming the Fully that birthed Mythos? That would be the one pure child of Anasrava who wields both the power of the Remembrance and the Enigmata. I'm not saying that it's a 100% guarantee, but with the knowledge we have at our disposal now, March 7th is the most likely candidate to become Fullia at the end of the universe thanks to her powers, her close proximity and involvement with the Trailblaze, and also thanks to the fact that in the end credits, she still shows up as question marks. Probably because her true identity isn't March 7th, the cute pink-haired girl who loves taking photos, but actually the yet unborn Aeon of Remembrance, Fully. And here's another idea to think about. If Fully wasn't born yet, then the moment when Fully's body is shattered hasn't occurred yet. By that logic, the pure children of Anasrava shouldn't exist yet. But they do. And the only way I can explain this is that somehow they managed to travel back in time and become part of the present universe. I don't think this idea is far-fetched considering the revelations that we've gotten in 3.7 with Cyrene. Also, I want to say one more thing about her. My jaw dropped when I realized that they not only foreshadowed the ending of 3.7 at the very start, but outright told us exactly what would happen. We just didn't know it at the time. Cyrene has a line just before the cutscene where she meets the Trailblazer. There, Philia talks to Cyrene. Her final words before Cyrene departed were, "You shall fade when the flowers bloom, for every ending begets a new beginning." The real heartbreaking part is that in that moment, Philia knew exactly what would happen to Cyrene in the future. And even though she was talking to Cyrene here, Philia was also talking to herself. Because as we've learned, Cyrene and Philia are the same person. So when telling Cyrene, "You will fade," she was also talking about herself in this moment, right now, when Philia is fated to fade away because Cyrene, the new flower, has bloomed. Because every ending, meaning every Philia, begets a new beginning, aka a new Cyrene. Next, let's talk about Lycurgus. Now, there is a distinction to be made between Lycurgus and Xandar. Xandar won Kuwabara is the first genius and was killed by the Lord of Silence. Lycurgus is just one of 9 inventions that are now housing pieces of the original Xandar's consciousness and is just as much a slave to the scepter as the Chrysos heirs. He has been programmed to pursue destruction by Xandar, and even after cutting off all communications to Xandar, he is still that imperfect creation, that imperfect copy of Xandar following its programming without being able to stray away. But small cracks of conscience are forming, and it's these small cracks that represent Lycurgus's personality. And he understands this fact perfectly, as Lycurgus himself states that those 12 glowing unrefined stones, referring to the Chrysos heirs, had more freedom than he ever had. Perhaps given enough time, Lycurgus would also end up developing a strong enough sense of self to break free from who he was designed to be. Not Xandar's creation, not his invention, but Lycurgus the Theoros, free to pursue his own goals, irrespective of the objectives he was designed for. Moving on to another genius, let's talk about Herta and her insane plan of merging her mind to a literal god, all for the purpose of rewriting the 4th instant and saving the universe. This was her backup plan in case everything went wrong, and that's exactly what happened. However, we know from the Myriad Celestia trailer that if she had done this, she would have become Hertatomb, and would have led us to one of the bad endings the Stellaron hunters are trying to avoid. Just as she was about to attempt to rewrite the 4th instant, Nous cast their glance on the Trailblazer. This prompted Herta to stop her attempt and instead translate Nous's words for the Trailblazer. And they have some very interesting things to share. Nous is an anomaly. They say that they have already met the Trailblazer before in the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd instance, but I don't think that's the case. What I think this actually represents is that Nous met Alkivili in the first 3 instants, and now in the 4th instant, they met us, the Trailblazer, who might be the person who most closely embodies Akivili. This theory is further supported by Nous calling the Trailblazer Akivili at the end of their questioning. Now, this moment is extremely significant because this already happened once before. Some people might not remember it, but we have met Nous before in Herta's simulated universe. In that encounter, Nous asked us questions, and once we gave the answers, Nous had the same reaction, calling us Akivili before disappearing. I think this is a very important moment because if it happened once before in a simulation and then once more in reality, it just goes to show that the Trailblazer might actually be a candidate to rise to the Eon Hood of trailblazing, much like how Cyrene and March 7th can become fully the Remembrance. It also proves that Herta's simulated universe is actually pretty accurate to the real world. They also say that the path of Trailblaze has already marched towards finality. Marching towards finality can mean 2 things. It could mean that we are heading in a direction that will make us clash with the finality itself, or it could mean that the Trailblaze itself could become another form of finality. After all, the Myriad Celestia trailer already showed us finalities that involved other paths, so why couldn't there be a Trailblaze aspected finality? And more interestingly, how would such a finality manifest? Anyway, Nous asks questions of the Trailblazer, possibly in an attempt to calculate the 4th instant, which is the war among the eons. Apparently, the Trailblazer's answers have become a new variable, and Nous's calculations now take the Trailblazer into account, where before they did not. They also call the Trailblazer Akivili while leaving behind an exclamation point. I'm not sure if this is truly an exclamation or a logical negation. The point is that this is a clue to a mystery that I am as of yet unable to identify. We'll probably come back to this exclamation point sometime in the future, but as of now, it's a puzzle piece that we don't know where to place. So to conclude, the Nous encounter hints that they have met Akivili at the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd instance, and now once again at the 4th instant via the Trailblazer. Nous's questioning allowed them to come to the conclusion that we are Akivili. As for the exclamation point, it can be interpreted both ways. Nous could be saying that we are Akivili or that we are not Akivili, or it could be a combination of the two where Nous realizes that we are not yet Akivili. We are the person meant to ascend to the role of the Eon of the Trailblaze. This is further reinforced by the parallel that is drawn by Pom Pom. The moment Pom Pom comes in, he admits that he has been by Akivili's side all along. He also has a message for you, potentially the same message he gave Akivili: run! Pom Pom's announcement could also be a reference to how the fourth instant has now been overtaken by the Trailblaze, changing the type of finality from destruction or remembrance to a Trailblaze aspected finality, possibly like Nous suggested during his interrogation. It would also fit with the idea that the fourth instant has changed from being a single instant in time to a chain of events, as the path of trailblazing itself isn't about reaching a destination, but about paving the way forward. And if we try to visualize a literal chain of events, I do believe it would look very similar to train carriages that are all linked to a locomotive and each other. Next up, I want to talk about that moment when the Trailblazer met their other self. Since I play Kalis, it was Stell that showed up in my playthrough. Stell showing up confused me a lot because there really isn't much information being given to us. What is she? Is she the other body that was prepared for us and went rogue? Most likely not. What this leads me to believe is that Stell is a manifestation of Akivili, the original Akivili, the one who left Pegana long ago. Why? It's because she says, "I trailblaze because my own eyes have not seen the end." This by itself doesn't tell us much, but if you go into the databank entry for Akivili, it mentions that the reason for trailblazing was to find the end point of the Tree of Existence, but their journey was cut short because of an unknown accident. With this entry in mind, Stell saying she has not seen the end makes a little more sense, as she might be referring to the end of the Tree of Existence. Of course, this is by no means a certainty, but the hint is there, and as we've learned from Amphoreus so far, coincidences never truly are just coincidences. As to why Akivili's appearance is the spitting image of Stell, we do not know. Regardless, patch 3.7 was amazing in terms of its story, characters, and lores. I am very happy with what was presented. However, now it is time for the critique part of the video. As much as I adored this conclusion to Amphoreus, it definitely could have been improved. First off, clarity was a bit of an issue. I understand that speaking in metaphors is part of Cyrene's characterization, and I'm perfectly alright with that. But there were certain moments throughout the story, like Herta's explanations, where she was not being 100% clear. I mean, for a genius like her who has a no-nonsense policy and dislikes having her time wasted, her explanations were not as clear or to the point as you might expect from a character like her. This is just a minor nitpick, however, as I do believe that this could be attributed to sentimentality. After all, in 3.7, Herta's personality was fleshed out much more, showing that she is not just a cold and calculated genius, but someone who actually cares more than she is willing to show. To put it simply, Herta is a tsundere. The real criticism, however, is in regards to its presentation. Hoyo, you have here one of the best conclusions to a story arc, a culmination of character development, mysteries being solved, and plot threads being tied up, and I do not believe the presentation fully matched the epic proportions of the story. Let's take a look at Wuthering Waves. I can criticize the substance of their story all day and how they forget their own plot points and foreshadowing, but what I can never criticize is their presentation. It is exactly what it should be for a grand finale, an action-packed cinematic roller coaster that showcases all of the characters Rover has met along the way. This is what HSR could have done to crown their story with the presentation it deserved. Think how amazing it would have been had we got about a 3-minute cutscene where the Chrysos heirs would all show up in their Titan forms and fight Iron Tomb together. A struggle of cosmic proportions where each and every character puts their life on the line. It's funny to me whenever I think that these two games, HSR and Wuthering Waves, are both lacking something the other game excels at. HSR lacks the top-notch presentation, while Wuthering Waves lacks the story substance. I know this would never happen, but if the dev teams would ever work together, I could only imagine the masterpiece they'd be able to create. But that's about it. Overall, I am definitely satisfied with 3.7's conclusion. If I had to choose, I would always prefer having good story substance over good story presentation. Great presentation would definitely be the cherry on top, but not the actual cake. Anyway, thanks for watching the video. If you enjoy what I do, please leave a like and a sub. Memberships are up if you want to support the channel, and I will see you all in the next one. Until then, have a good one.